As we move into the depths of cerebral circulation, you must be familiar with this one very essential basics called Monro-Kelly doctrine, without which your answer is incomplete. You haven't even understood cerebral circulation. That's going to be the importance of this one point, guys, Monro-Kelly doctrine. Now what does this tells you? You see this first picture, guys. Now brain is present within a cranial space, right? And cranial space is not an elastic one. So the content should be of a very limited size. Only then the brain and the associated tissues can be supported by cranial bone. If there is going to be any expansion of these cranial content, this expansion cannot be taken up. This expansion cannot be handled by the bones around the brain. There is going to be a tremendous increase in pressure within the cranial cavity. This will make the brain to get squeezed and ejected out of the cranial cavity. We call as herniation. So brain, you would have studied this in anatomy, guys. There is a foramen in base of the skull called as foramen magnum, through which the brainstem is going to getting converted into spinal cord. When the intracranial pressure is going to be so high, this is going to actually squeeze the brain through the foramen magnum. There is going to be herniation of brainstem into the foramen magnum, and this will practically make the patient to lose his life, because in the medulla we got cardiovascular centers, we got respiratory centers. In the process of herniation, these structures are getting severely crushed and compromised, making these structures to lose its function. So under any circumstances, we can't afford to get the intracranial content to be very much changed. So there must be a specific limit with which this intracranial content is maintained. And when it comes to this intracranial content, guys, it is going to be 80% of intracranial content made by brain volume, arterial volume 3 to 4%, venous volume 6 to 7%, CSF volume 10%, guys. To be precise, brain volume is going to be 80%, blood volume including artery as well as veins. Artery as well as vein included, blood volume is going to be somewhat about 10%, on an average of 10% of blood volume, and CSF volume is going to be another 10%. So together it is going to be 80 plus 10 plus 10, 100% of intracranial content, guys. Alright. Now in the second picture, look at this state, guys. Now there is a intracranial mass. There is some increased brain size, maybe some tumor growing, or there may be some edematous brain. If there is a expansion of brain state, you can't able to hold all these content within the brain space. So there must be some compromise, without which you can't able to accommodate this brain added space, guys. What compromise is happening? You can clearly see the arterial volume is getting maintained the same. There is no change in arterial volume, but some of the venous volume is being compromised and some of the CSF volume is being compromised. Only with the compromise of CSF volume and venous return, there will be a tumorous growth possible, because the space is a limited one. It is a non-expansive one because brain is surrounded by bones in the skull. When this tumor becomes bigger, or when this edema becomes bigger, this expansion cannot be contained by the space, and this will lead to brain herniation and compression and crushing of cardiovascular centers and respiratory centers, leading to death. And this hasn't happened so far, and hence we call this as a compensated state, because CSF has gone down, venous return has gone down, the pressure remains normal, intracranial pressure is very normal still, because it has been perfectly compensated by a drop in cerebrospinal fluid and a drop in venous outflow. Now people, if the mass is so enormous, to the point of encroaching such a huge size, venous return is seriously compromised, cerebrospinal fluid is seriously compromised. Now this cannot be maintained, intracranial pressure increases, and we call this condition as decompensated state, guys. Alright, with decompensated state, the next step it is going to be brain herniation. The next step is going to be brain herniation, guys. This is the way with which the cerebral content is going to behave. Now if you see, on x-axis you got intracranial volume, on y-axis you got intracranial pressure. with increasing intracranial volume till the point of compensation, intracranial pressure remains normal or maintained. Beyond a point, there is no possibility of maintaining intracranial pressure, and intracranial pressure increases as the volume is increasing, guys. Alright, so this constancy in a normal state, I repeat, in a very normal state, this constancy of intracranial pressure is what is called as Monro-Kelly doctrine. The constancy of intracranial pressure during normal state is what is called as Monro-Kelly doctrine. And this is mediated by three structures, guys. One is brain, and the second one is CSF, and the third one is blood flow. Now guys, please remember, brain has got a volume of about 1400 ml. As a volume it has got 1400 ml. Cerebrospinal fluid has got 150 ml of volume. Blood flow, arterial as well as venous together, arterial plus venous blood flow together, this is going to be another 150 ml. So together it is going to be 1700 ml of cranial content, guys, and this 1700 ml is mediated by 1400 ml of brain volume, 150 ml of CSF plus 150 ml of blood flow, guys. Together it is going to be 1700 ml of intracranial content, and this 1700 ml of intracranial content is going to get a intracranial pressure. ICP refers to intracranial pressure, which will be referred in centimeters of water, and the normal intracranial pressure is going to be somewhat about 10 to 15 centimeters of water, and this is going to be the very normal intracranial pressure. Very normal intracranial pressure, guys. Fine. With this, during rest, the brain is going to receive about 20% of body oxygen, and brain is going to receive 25% of total body glucose.